My mom cheated on my dad and left him for his best friend. She made him look like he was the one at fault and I, 23F, developed a resentment towards him. I recently found out what happened and I feel guilty for being an asshole to my dad and I want to make it up to him. My mom had been married to my dad for 9 years before she cheated and left him for his best friend who is my stepdad. My father served in the army and his best friend was this rich guy who I saw hanging out with my mom at that time. During the divorce my mom told me that my dad was abusive, controlling and was not there emotionally, that's why she was leaving him. She told me that my dad treated her badly, called her names and did not love her. At the time I was only 10 years old. My mom got primary custody and dad was stuck paying child support. I only got to see my dad only 2 weekends per month. After that I held some resentment towards my dad. I dreaded when it was time to see him. He had sold what used to be our house, moved back to his hometown, opened a mechanic shop and lived in this shop. He was an alcoholic who always tried to sober up when I came to stay him. He was miserable, lonely and depressed. He always tried to clean up his house when I went to stay with him even though it still smelled like alcohol, gunpowder, gasoline and those car oils. And sometimes I found dirty laundry stacked in the laundry room. When I turned 15 I started to see him less. I refused to go stay with him and made up excuses. I only visited him a few times a year. One day I went to visit him without informing him. I found him drinking while watching a football game. He was surprised to see me. He quickly started getting rid of his beer cans, cleaning his kitchen, asking for if I was hungry so that he could order pizza, and I just lashed out at him and told him that's why Mum left him, because he was so miserable and could keep his shit together. I felt guilty afterwards. He loves old classic muscle cars and when I turned 18 he got me a 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS, which he had fixed it himself. Later me and Mum sold it and got a Honda Civic. Anyway, last week I came to visit my mom that I was planning to stay for the weekend. On Saturday night I overheard my mom and my stepdad talking about what happened 12 years ago, bragging about their affair and not once even regretting how it affected my dad. All they said that felt sorry for him. I couldn't help but cry. I wanted to confront her but I couldn't bring myself. I wanted to call her names, insult her, but I didn't have the strength. I was full of mixed emotions but I felt guilty the most. All this time I held a resentment towards my dad, thinking he was the bad guy, but he was only the victim of my mom's affair. He never recovered from the affair due to his depression and anxiety issues. And all the time I thought he faked to care about me. He genuinely cared for me. And he always tried to stay strong and smile for me. I left the following day and found my dad at his mechanic shop and hugged him. I was crying and he was puzzled and I kept saying sorry repeatedly. When he managed to calm me down I told him everything and I apologized even more. And when I asked why he didn't fight my mom for my custody, he told me that he knew that his depression and anxiety issues plus his PTSD would make him to be unfit parents. And he never wanted to ruin the relationship between me and my mom because he knew I loved my mom and his ex-best friend loved me and would take care of me more than he would. He said that it was not my fault and forgave me and he was happy I found out. I want to make it up to my dad, but I don't know how. Please help. TLDR. Mom cheated and left dad for his best friend. Made him look bad. I grew a resentment towards him, now I want to make it up to him. Final update. Sorry for the late update, it's a bit long but a few of you insisted I update them. For those who missed out on my previous post, check out my profile, I posted it on my profile. First, thanks to all those who took their time to comment and offer support. As some of you said, there are two sides in every story, and I decided to listen my dad's side. He admitted to being distant and not affectionate after his last deployment due to his PTSD, but the affair had been going on when he was in deployment. I confronted my mom a few days later after my post and she was defensive at first. She said that I was not grateful for what she did for me, and that she simply protected me from my father. She called him a few names. I didn't want to argue and I had already chosen my next words carefully. I told her that my father was a good man who was broken by the betrayal of the two people he trusted the most, and worst, you turned his own daughter against him. I appreciate and am grateful for everything, but it's time I choose for the parent who put his own daughter's need first, even it means making hard sacrifices, and not the one who wanted the daughter to satisfy her own needs. Goodbye, Mom, I will keep in touch." Before I left, tears had been building in her eyes. And she just remained silent. She has tried to reach out to me, but I just ignore her or ask her to stop disturbing me. I don't to block her, but my message is loud and clear. My aunt has recently reached out to me and told me that my mom is depressed. Well, her husband can take care of her. As for my dad, most of you suggested I sell a Civic and buy the Chevy Chevelle SS back. I couldn't find the person I sold it to. But I decided to look for old worn-out muscle cars to fix. I have been searching for a while. It was hard, but I had help of a few friends and even some Redditors who reached out to me on chat. Almost 2 weeks ago I was lucky and found an old wrecked 1970 Dodge Charger. And yeah, I sold the Civic to afford the Charger. My dad was kinda upset, but when I told him the reason, he brightened up. He's been more than happy to show me how to fix it. I bought an apartment an hour away from his mechanic shop. One Redditor suggested I do a makeover at his place. Well, I have been making time and I have started to renovate and do a makeover. And my friends from college who are studying interior design have decided to help. It took him a little of convincing as he felt embarrassed, but he finally joined the train. Now every day after college I go to visit him, and on weekends I spend time with him and talk about anything. Mostly he's interested in my life. He likes soccer and is a big fan of Arsenal. So I always keeps him company during match days, pick the opponent's team to add fun, and am learning a little of football. Since I sold my car, he has allowed me to use his 1977 Pontiac Firebird. He has been with it since I was 11, and as long as I can remember he has never let anyone drive it. Since I have been around more often, he has stopped his drinking habits, maybe a few, and I join him on game nights, but who can blame us? So there is your update. If you made it this far, I guess it is a happy ending. Thanks all of you all again.